I, a 59-year-old male, went through the painful experience of being cheated on and divorced by my ex-wife, Lucy, who is 49 years old, around 4 years ago. We had been married for 12 years and have 2 children, aged 14 and 11. Lucy was my second wife, with my first marriage ending tragically due to the loss of my school sweetheart in an accident. My romantic journey has indeed been fraught with challenges, marked by several dark periods. However, as I approach my 60s, I am filled with gratitude and grace, having successfully navigated through it all. I manage a modest real estate business. After losing my first wife, I was devastated, especially since we didn't have any children together, leaving me feeling adrift in life. This period, occurring in my early 40s, left me directionless, leading to excessive drinking and similar behavior. It was during this time that I met Lucy at a bar. She was also dealing with a recent heartbreak involving her college friend, and we quickly formed a connection. I must admit, I was in a rather vulnerable state, seeking solace, and I became emotionally attached to Lucy in a short span of time. We dated for a year, and it was Lucy who proposed marriage. I can't say for certain if I was fully prepared for marriage at that point, but Lucy was eager for commitment, and I acquiesced without giving it excessive thought. She was in her early 30s and desired to settle down. Interestingly, she had ended her relationship with her college friend due to commitment issues. They had a friends with benefits arrangement, and while she developed feelings for him, he didn't reciprocate. After years of a physical relationship, she eventually decided to move on from him. When she firmly communicated her desire for marriage or nothing, I couldn't risk losing her, so we had a private wedding ceremony. At that point in time, it may have seemed like a hasty decision, and I'm not sure if it was the best choice, but I honestly have no regrets. My life with Lucy was fulfilling. We embarked on numerous travels, both before and after having children. We were blessed with 2 wonderful kids. For 12 years, we enjoyed a stable marriage until her friend AP entered the picture, and Lucy returned to him, ultimately leading to our divorce. I retained custody of the children and centered my life around them. However, an unexpected development occurred recently when Lucy reappeared in our lives. When I saw her at the door, I initially didn't recognize her. She appeared pale and distressed, with puffy red eyes as though she hadn't slept in a while. Overwhelmed, she broke down upon seeing me, and I welcomed her inside. I had assumed that something terrible had happened to AP, but instead she hugged me and tearfully apologized for leaving me. Our kids were away at summer camp, leaving me alone at home. Once she had composed herself, Lucy revealed that AP had abandoned her and returned to his native country in southern Europe, leaving a note that simply read, "I'm sorry, I can't marry you." "I have a wife and children at home," he uttered, and it was truly heartbreaking. He had been leading a double life, toying with Lucy's emotions. He strung her along for 4 years, never marrying her and ultimately abandoning her. I'm uncertain whether I should feel happy or sad about this entire situation. Karma may have played a role, but I refrained from uttering any hurtful words. I genuinely felt sympathy for her, but there was little I could do. She asserted that I was her only hope and had returned to me, knowing I would forgive her and take her back. I explained that I had moved on from her. While I harbored no bitter feelings, I couldn't allow her to walk over me again. I forgave her once for her infidelity, but she repeated the betrayal. She had been deeply in love with AP to the point that she didn't hesitate to abandon her children for him. She remained faithful to me for 12 years only because AP was abroad. Her return now was solely because AP had left her. I expressed my empathy, but also my inability to trust her again. She burst into tears once more, pleading for forgiveness. I relented, informing her that I had forgiven her and offering the possibility of joint custody of our children, provided the kids agreed. She was reluctant to leave, so I had to be firm in order to escort her out. Although she departed, her unexpected return has left me feeling deeply unsettled. I've had my share of drama in life, and now all I desire is a peaceful existence. Update 1. Hi everyone. I want to express my gratitude for all the kind words and appreciate all the comments, whether they're good or bad. Some of you have inquired about the details of my history with Lucy and how we ended up in this situation. So here's the story. As I mentioned earlier, our marriage was smooth for 12 years. Our troubles began when Lucy's former flame re-entered her life. He was the same individual she had parted ways with due to commitment issues. After their breakup, he returned to his home country, but now he was back in the city, and Lucy couldn't resist seeing him. At first, I didn't object when he occasionally visited us. She assured me that she had moved on, and I believed her. We had been married for 12 years and had 2 children, during which time she had been a wonderful wife and an excellent mother. There were never any signs of trouble. I didn't unjustly suspect her. Then one day she came home and locked herself in the room. Despite our repeated knocks on the door for dinner, she didn't respond. I called her phone to check if everything was all right. She texted back, assuring me that she was fine but needed some time alone. I respected her request and slept in the living room that night. The following day, she attempted to act as if everything was normal, but it was apparent that something was amiss. I inquired about what was bothering her, and she mentioned having a disagreement with her sister. However, she downplayed it, assuring me it wasn't a significant issue and that she would handle it. She chose not to divulge the specifics, and I respected her wish. I refrained from prying into her sister's affairs, as I've always been one to avoid meddling in their private matters. She was aware of this aspect of my personality, which may be why she fabricated the story about her sister. Initially, I took her explanation at face value. However, as time passed, it became evident that the issue didn't revolve around her sister. It was about her friend. Before this incident, she had been enthusiastic about talking about her friend and making plans to invite him over for dinner and drinks. Yet suddenly, after that evening, she ceased discussing him. I attempted to inquire about him, but she avoided any conversations concerning him. Additionally, although Lucy had experienced disagreements with her sister in the past, she had never been this visibly distressed and upset. So yes, it was an assumption on my part, but it ultimately proved accurate. Rather than resorting to surveillance or seeking concrete evidence, I decided to confront her regarding the possibility of infidelity with her friend. To my relief, she admitted it instead of attempting to manipulate the situation or deny it. She confessed that when AP returned, she couldn't resist meeting him. It started with friendly encounters in public places, which gradually progressed to visits to his residence, rekindling their past connection. I inquired if she still had feelings for him, to which she responded with a firm no. She implored me for a chance, acknowledging that she had allowed herself to be carried away in that moment. It occurred once, and she admitted her guilt, acknowledging that it tormented her from within. Following that evening, she ceased all contact with AP. She confessed to having loved him during their time together, but lamented that he had never respected her emotions and had used her purely for physical purposes. Overwhelmed with emotion, she broke down and vowed never to betray me again. No matter what you may call it, I found myself falling for her once more. While I was deeply wounded, I was determined to salvage my marriage for the sake of my children, especially considering that the younger one was just 4 years old at the time. The thought of divorce meant being separated from my children, which I simply couldn't bear. Some might say I was vulnerable for not taking a more drastic step. I chose to forgive her and grant our marriage another opportunity. However, I made it abundantly clear that any future betrayal on her part would be the end of us. It's important to note that I define cheating not solely in terms of physical infidelity, but also emotional betrayal, and she agreed to these terms. We embarked on a journey to rebuild our relationship, enjoying date nights and vacations together. Things went smoothly for a few months until my suspicions resurfaced. This time I didn't overlook the warning signs. Although it had happened 4 years prior, I remained extra vigilant, even if I couldn't recall all the specific details accurately. In general, the signs were there. She seemed absent-minded, didn't allocate enough time for me and the children, often had a bad mood at home, but wore a smile while texting and laughed during phone conversations with others. Her phone seemed like a constant attachment. Furthermore, she avoided intimacy with me and claimed to never be in the mood. Once again, I confronted her directly, but she refused to acknowledge anything was amiss. Instead, she went on the defensive and attempted to manipulate the situation by shifting blame onto me. She accused me of lacking trust in her, portraying herself as a victim due to my constant surveillance stemming from her previous infidelity. I tried to defend myself, but it became apparent that my efforts were futile. So, like many do in such circumstances, I sought evidence to expose her. I discreetly examined her phone and discovered she hadn't changed the password, indicating there was nothing hidden within it. While I did come across conversations with AP, they were mundane exchanges from several months prior, dating back to when she had initially cheated on me. Nothing incriminating was found on her phone. I contemplated other avenues for uncovering her infidelity, but before I could act on them, she confessed. She had learned that I had checked her phone and believed that my doubts would eventually lead me to the truth, so she decided to come clean. She revealed that after our initial confrontation, she had attempted to distance herself from AP, but he had pleaded for her return. She avoided him because she was concerned about causing trouble in our relationship. However, this time he assured her of his love and commitment, even mentioning marriage once he resolved some personal matters. They decided to keep this hidden. She confessed to cheating on me and admitted that she couldn't resist the opportunity to be with AP. I understood that her love for him had never truly waned. She had only suppressed her feelings due to his past commitment issues. Now that AP was serious about her, she couldn't resist his advances. She initiated divorce proceedings, and I sought custody of our children. I had a sense that she also wanted to distance herself from the children, as she readily agreed and requested permission to meet with them weekly. I consented, but I asked her to convey this news to the children without portraying me negatively. She told them that we were divorcing because our love had faded, a difficult revelation for them. The children cried and pleaded for us to reconcile. Their emotional turmoil initially made me bitter towards her, but I eventually realized that even if she had a change of heart about the divorce, I couldn't forgive her this time. So, divorce appeared to be the best option for us. I assured the children that I would continue to be a devoted father, a role I had always embraced. Transitioning to a full-time single parent was not a challenge for me, although the children missed their mother. Our divorce was settled amicably, and despite my hurt feelings, I didn't hold a grudge. You can call me a coward or attribute it to my maturity due to age, but I chose to let her go. The following months were undeniably tough, especially with the younger child. To keep their spirits high, I organized multiple vacations, mini-trips, picnics, and various activities. I did everything I could to ensure their happiness. Lucy visited them weekly at first, but eventually settled with AP in Alabama. By then, both the children and I had moved on. Over the past 4 years, my children have grown into kind, resilient, and emotionally strong individuals. Lucy used to call them after moving away. Initially, the children would hang up on her and harbor resentment, but over time, they became more forgiving and understanding. They now maintain a cordial relationship with her. Regarding the current situation, when my children returned from summer camp and learned about their mother, they didn't feel particularly sorry for her. Their sentiment was more like, she made her own choices. I tell you, these young generation kids can be quite discerning. They were quite upset when I mentioned the idea of joint custody. They refused to see her or live with her, fearing that she might abandon them again if AP reappears. I know they're right. It's puzzling how AP keeps drawing her back despite numerous betrayals. Second update. I've come to realize that dealing with Lucy requires a thick skin. For those who mentioned that I might be a simp, I'm not entirely sure what that means, but yes, I do consider myself an old-school guy. Quite literally, considering I'm 59 years old. We old-school men don't go on a crusade to vilify women who no longer love us. We let them go. However, this doesn't mean we allow ourselves to be walked all over. We have our boundaries too. I don't harbor any ill feelings towards negative comments, but I wanted to clarify things on behalf of all there. Now, on to Lucy's return. This time, our kids were at home when she showed up. They were taken aback upon seeing her. I urged them to be polite, and they did engage in a conversation with her for a while before retreating to their rooms. Lucy inquired about the possibility of reconciliation, to which I firmly responded that reconciliation was not an option and the children didn't wish to live with her. However, I did express that if she could convince them otherwise, I would be open to it. I don't want to make assumptions, but it seems to me that she might not desire to have the children with her either. She mentioned that her financial situation was dire, as she had been staying on an old friend's couch, and that friend might ask her to leave at any moment. I knew her financial circumstances were challenging, but I wasn't aware they were this severe. Before our marriage, she worked as a receptionist but left her job shortly after we tied the knot. During our divorce, she received a fair compensation. I inquired about what she did with the money. She explained that she had given it to AP to support his business. Furthermore, she had to take on 2 jobs to make ends meet in Alabama. Despite all her efforts, AP eventually left her, taking all their savings with him. The only money she had managed to keep hidden from AP was all she had left. She used that money to travel back and has been surviving on it. I offered to lend her some money so she could rent a condo and rebuild her life, but she declined. She emphasized that she had always sought love, not money. If money had been her priority, she wouldn't have left our stable life together for someone as financially unstable as AP. While she expressed a desire to live with us as a family, it wasn't a feasible option. At times, I do feel sympathy for her, but we don't have the capacity to accommodate her in our lives. I provided her with a check and encouraged her to rent a house, find employment, and consider seeking therapy, which she appears to be in great need of. I've asked my kids to be compassionate toward their mother, considering she is the one who gave birth to them. They have become more understanding, but they remain firm in their decision not to welcome her back into their lives. Lucy occasionally texts me, questioning whether she deserves the animosity she has received. I'm unsure of how to respond, but it's undeniable that she has wronged both me and the children. Third update. I want to express my gratitude for all the kind words in my previous posts. I didn't provide an update for quite some time because there wasn't much to report. It seemed like a repetitive cycle with Lucy randomly showing up, breaking down, and expressing a desire to reconcile. However, over the past 7 months, my family dynamics have become more complex. Approximately 1.5 to 2 years ago, before Lucy re-entered our lives, I met a woman I'll refer to as Jay. She's 62 years old, runs a flower boutique, and is as active as someone half her age. Initially, we were just friends, but after getting to know her for a year, I enjoyed her company immensely. I often spend my evenings and weekends helping out at her shop, appreciating her independent approach to life. Jay experienced the loss of her husband at an early age and raised 3 kids as a single mother. Now that her children have grown up and moved out, she sustains herself by selling flowers. I find her presence invigorating, and being around her makes me feel alive. I haven't mentioned Jay on this thread or to Lucy because I didn't want it to appear as if I wasn't considering reconciliation with Lucy due to Jay's presence. That's not the case at all. I have no intention of marrying Jay or anything like that. We're simply 2 individuals in our 60s, aiming to enjoy the later years of our lives without any unnecessary complications. My children are aware of Jay, and they're pleased that I have someone to share my thoughts and feelings with. My eldest child is graduating from high school this year, and soon the younger one will also move on to high school or college. While I'm not emotionally dependent on Jay, I believe having a friend to share thoughts with at this stage of life is invaluable. I had confided in Jay about Lucy's visit, and she responded with empathy towards the situation. However, this did not sit well with Lucy. On one occasion, she spotted me at Jay's shop and observed us throughout the evening without my awareness. From our body language, Lucy deduced that I was dating Jay. It's likely she had followed us and witnessed my visits to Jay's place in the evenings and my nights spent there. One day, as I was leaving Jay's place, Lucy confronted me, hurling derogatory remarks about Jay, accusing her of keeping me away from her. I was taken aback by her offensive language, wondering how she could say such things. I tried to calm her down, but she went beyond the limits, and I responded firmly. I pointed out her infidelity on 2 occasions, her abandonment of our children, and her audacity in reappearing and requesting reconciliation. Despite the absence of any cheating on my part, she resorted to name-calling and verbally abused Jay. I made it clear to Lucy that she was not welcome in our lives anymore. She had consistently shown selfishness and prioritized her own interests. After our confrontation, she left, but a few days later, Jay's shop was vandalized with a note that read, "Leave him." It was evident that Lucy was behind this act. Since there were no security cameras in Jay's shop, I encouraged Jay to file a complaint against Lucy based on the recent incident. Although Jay was initially hesitant about legal proceedings, I insisted on pursuing the matter. I summoned Lucy to our home and reprimanded her in front of the children, warning her of potential legal consequences if she continued to harass us, or Jay. I had not wanted to involve the children in this confrontation, but Lucy had called them to supposedly expose me. Predictably, the children sided with me and expressed their pent-up anger. Lucy, who had been responsible for disrupting our children's childhood, was now portraying herself as a victim and blaming me for our broken marriage. It has been approximately a month since these events transpired, and Lucy has not reappeared in our lives. The children and I extended our apologies to Jay for Lucy's outbursts and assisted her in restoring her shop to its previous condition. The children have suggested that I marry Jay before they leave for college, but both Jay and I have no interest in getting married. Although we share a deep affection for each other, I have yet to express these feelings to her. We have no desire to enter into the institution of marriage. I am content being the father of 2 children and Jay's boyfriend. Wink.
All right, that was a fun story. Now let's move on to another exciting one. Stay tuned and let's dive in.
I had been in a relationship with this woman for nearly 7 years, and we had lived together for 6 of those years. I worked as an electronic consultant, primarily setting up systems with numerous sensors. While it paid well, it also required extensive travel. Let me set the scene for you. At a certain point, I began to sense that something wasn't quite right. I couldn't pinpoint it exactly, but it was a gut feeling, and I'm usually pretty good at following my instincts. So I decided to gather some evidence. While she was out, I discreetly placed a sound-activated recorder in each room of our condo. These were small devices, with the storage connected to my office computer. I did this on a Friday afternoon, and then we spent the weekend together, enjoying ourselves. On Sunday night, just before going to bed, I loaded my luggage and tools into my car, and also discreetly attached a GPS tracker to her vehicle. The following morning, I left for my next work site, with the plan to be away for 2 weeks. I had daily conversations with her during the first week, but the second week was quite inconsistent. There were times when I tried calling her during her usual availability, only to have it go to voicemail. When I questioned her about it, I received several explanations, including work meetings, late dinners, and assisting her brother, among others. After 2 weeks had passed, I returned home and immediately headed to my office. Upon reviewing the recorder activity, I noticed a significant amount of conversation during the first week, but very little during the second, aside from the noise of a passing vehicle. I decided to revisit the recordings from the first week and discovered that she was engaged in phone conversations, with the added bonus of the speakerphone being on, allowing me to hear both sides of the calls. It turned out that she had been cheating on me practically since the beginning of our relationship. At that moment, I resolved that revenge was necessary. I needed to identify the man she was involved with. After some investigative work, I learned that she had met this individual, along with his wife and family, at a campground where she had worked before we met. I then located their residence and checked phone records. This was a few years ago when people still had landlines, so I looked up their number. Fortunately, it was listed, and when I dialed the number, a man answered. Prepared for this, I adopted a professional tone and asked to speak with Mrs. Smith. He called out for her, and a woman answered the phone. I inquired if she was familiar with my soon-to-be ex-girlfriend. She confirmed that they had indeed invited her to their house a few times after meeting her at the campground. This revelation was quite surprising to me. I explained that we couldn't discuss the details at that moment, but suggested she call me back when she had some free time, promising to provide a full explanation. I provided her with my cell phone number and hoped that her curiosity would prompt her to call. As anticipated, she did call me back 2 days later. I proceeded to explain everything that I had recorded. Initially, she approached the situation with skepticism. In response, I assured her that I would create a copy of the recording and send it to her. Though still somewhat doubtful, she agreed to this arrangement. Consequently, I took action. I visited a local recording studio, bringing along the audio files and explaining my requirements. They skillfully merged the individual recordings, allowing for a seamless conversation when she moved about the house. The resulting audio was then transferred onto CDs, spanning a total of 5 discs. I sent these CDs to Mrs. Smith via registered mail and entered a period of waiting. Approximately 10 days elapsed before she called me, sounding remarkably composed. She informed me that the day prior, she had gone ahead and filed for divorce. Her husband is employed on an oil rig, and he's scheduled to be on the rig for the next 2 weeks. Once she had the chance to listen to the CDs I sent her, she promptly handed them over to her attorney. Mr. Unfaithful had amassed a considerable fortune from his profession, and over the years, they had acquired numerous assets, such as campground plots, a boat, an RV, and more. She made her intentions clear. She was aiming for a 50% share. I couldn't help but chuckle to myself after getting off the phone. It seemed like fitting karma for a guy who had said such troubling things on those recordings. Throughout this entire period, I kept my girlfriend completely in the dark. I carried on as if everything were normal, and I even left the tracker on her car, though I didn't expect it to yield any results. Things remained quiet for another week until one day, chaos seemed to be on the horizon. My girlfriend appeared lost, wandering around the house aimlessly. I asked her what was troubling her, and she mentioned that a friend of hers was going through a divorce. I expressed my sympathy and continued with my daily routine. That evening, she was out on the deck engaged in a heated phone conversation. I didn't pay much attention, except for the fact that she raised her voice sporadically. Once the call ended, she returned to the bedroom and began packing clothes. I inquired about her actions but received no response. She completed her packing, loaded the suitcases into her car, and left without a word. 2 weeks elapsed without a word from her. Then I received a call from Mrs. Smith, who provided me with an update on her situation. She had served her husband with divorce papers citing infidelity as the reason. Naturally, he denied everything, but Mrs. Smith managed to present compelling details that left him stunned. She confirmed that the phone call my girlfriend had on the night she left was indeed with her, although Mrs. Smith clarified that she never raised her voice during the call. My now ex-girlfriend vehemently denied any wrongdoing. Mrs. Smith, however, subtly disclosed some incriminating information to my girlfriend, enough to make it clear that she had been exposed. She implied that she had uncovered the truth independently, and her next step was to inform me. This revelation explained why my cheating girlfriend had left abruptly. As for how I handled her betrayal, her credit card was revoked, and I arranged for her car to be repossessed. I took care of shutting off the utilities and canceled her insurance. All her belongings, which she had left behind, were shipped to her dad's house by movers, accompanied by a note explaining the circumstances. For reference, her dad lived 2 states away. Since we lived in a condo, I arranged for it to be shown for subleasing. I managed to pack up and move out within just 4 days. I moved to a new condominium, which is located in a gated community with a security guard. Her car was eventually retrieved while she was at work. The dealership cooperated with me in selling the car, and I covered the remaining costs. Mrs. Smith successfully secured her share in the divorce settlement. Mr. Cheater, also known as Mr. Smith, never contested any aspect of the divorce, as he was too concerned about his company discovering his indiscretions. I never received any further communication from my ex after that.